Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast, and this week, home to Apex GP. We are happy you've all joined us. I'm Brian, that's Rob. Rob, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing really well, despite the fact there's no race to review this week. We've still got a fairly packed show. Little public service announcement up front. We will be doing an F1 movie review as our last segment. So if you haven't seen it, stay with us all the way up until then, and then maybe bail and come back and re-listen once you've seen it. But we've got a big chunk of news and social, decent amount of videos. Um, Big announcement in the world of movies as well coming up
Yes,
at the end of news and social. So hang around for that, and then we'll tell you what we thought of F1 the movie.
but
Now,
there was a lot of news this week, or there was
yeah.
news this week, and it was of the big variety.
So imagine this. Wednesday afternoon, I on Wednesday, whenever it is, I usually kind of settle down ready to get the newsletter out. I take all the stuff that we did on the week before, drop it into the newsletter, until I decide what I'm going to write about, just to kind of add some extra newsletter only content. And then it broke, and it was like Horner's out at Red Bull. I was like, holy crap. And it's like, oh man, maybe. So I kind of like kept up with all of that. And before I knew it, it was Friday and I was sending the newsletter. But yeah, we'll jump into that, I guess, is the first piece of news, right? Christian Horner, well, I've got to get this right. He has not been sacked by Red Bull. He is still listed on the directors of Red Bull, so they haven't put a filing into Company's House and removed him. He has been relieved of his operational duties for team principal. So, I mean, and he's not on gardening leave. He's still employed by Red
I
Bull to
didn't
this
even
day. I
know
checked
that. I
again this
thought he was
morning.
just straight out fired. No more
No,
CEO, no more TP.
Kerry put out this thing saying the way that it works in the UK is if you're a director of a company, you essentially have to resign from being a director, or the board has to vote you out, or whatever, right? And in order to do that, they have to put a filing into this beautiful establishment called Companies House, where everything is in the public domain that you can see listed. So Terry, being the forensic journalist that he is, went straight there to go, right, everyone's saying he's been sacked. Has he? No, even today, he's still listed as a director of Red Bull. So quite what they're going to do. Maybe he'll just sit as a director for a while till they finally vote him out. But as of today, he's just relieved of operational duties.
All right, so
So
regardless,
he's
he's
been
no
sacked.
longer, yeah, he's no day-to-day activity with Red Bull on the team
Exactly.
anymore. So Rob and I, this came out for me early Wednesday morning, and saw it. My friends were texting me at about 5:45 Central when this was coming out in the morning, and it was wild. And I was on my way on a work trip, one where I was driving. So as I'm in the car, I called Rob, and the two of us started a great conversation on why. And the why is, I think, probably the biggest question most people have. And at least why now? Let's you can change it. It could have been a year ago during his harassment scandal situation, but no. It could have been at the end of the season, depending on how the season shapes up for Red Bull Max for the second seat, but no. It's now. And the coincidence with all of the Max to Mercedes rumors can't be ignored, right? That has to be loosely, if not fully, related to this timing. One would think. So
One
Rob and
would
I
think,
kind of
yes.
started what could have been the driving factor. And so Rob, you want to kind of go with the first one and I'll take the second and so forth.
Well, yeah. So the first two that first came out, and me and Brian will do each side of the coin, is he went either to keep Max or because he lost Max. I'll let Brian dig into the lost Max. I'll do the keep Max. So the keep Max was um, Max has always been rumored to have these performance clauses in his contract, which if we believe what we read, if Red Bull don't give him a car that's capable of winning the driver's title, and there's some sort of milestone in there that, like, by the summer break, it's obvious he can't win, then he could walk away. So maybe he offered them a deal to keep him and said, well, guys, I can trigger this contract clause and just walk away. But if you want to keep me, uh, how about we get rid of that numpty Horner? So that was one side of the coin that was coming around. Before I give my view on that, can you take us down the other side of the coin,
Well,
Brian?
the other side's quite easy. Max agreed to leave. He agreed to go to Mercedes, and Red Bull leadership said, well, that's the final straw. We let you hang around because we had a generational talent in Max F. Verstappen. But now you've lost him. He's left. That's on your watch. That's your fault. You're done because right now we have a car that no one else can seemingly drive. We're going to lose a generational talent as we enter the new regs. What are you good for now? So I think that's the flip is if you lost Max, that was your duty to keep him. Shame on you.
Yeah. So the internet started, or the internets started debating all of that. People were saying, well, Max was pretty tight with Christian, so maybe the first one about keeping Max doesn't work. But then yeah, but Yoss is the one that's in the ear of management and he hates him. So
Right.
maybe and he's his manager, isn't he? So he's like,
No, he's got
if you want
another
my son
manager
to,
too.
if you want my son to stick around, then you got to get rid of
I,
Horner. So
I,
that had traction, right?
and I went personally down a deep dive on that side because it does feel like if Max left, if he's agreed to Mercedes and we just don't know it, or if he's openly shopping and saying I'm available and we don't know it, the other side of the coin that I described already is pretty obvious. But this one, to keep Max, has a lot of tinfoil hat opportunities. And I like that. That makes me excited because I'm sitting there in the car just staring at the road lines. I had no music on. I wasn't on any work calls. I'm focused on taking apart this story. And I start thinking about 3 weeks ago, we actually talked about this. Sebastian Vettel being considered, thought of, planning for becoming the next Helmut Marko, sort of the advisor to Red Bull, and I guess apparently RB. But regardless, Seb stepping into that spot one day. What if, as part of this keep Max side of the coin, what if, because of the tightness with Marco and Yoss's connection to Marco as opposed to Horner, what if the conversation to keep Max now becomes, hey, we know Helmut won't be here forever, but you want continuity, you want leadership, you want someone you can relate to, another 4-time champion, another person who won at Red Bull. The next Helmut is Seb, and they may bring him along sooner than later and kind of show Max that the people running this team care about you. They want you to be successful here. They'll build around you. And the next guy who's going to do it, Sebastian Vettel. So I'm sitting here waiting for like Seb to just show up at Spa, come down from a helicopter with smoke coming out behind him and laser light show, and is like, I shall save Red Bull.
So everyone's bounced around on both of those, deciding which one they believe in more. And I was kind of looking at various different things online, and I think it was. I'm going to struggle to find the name quickly now as I try to pad while I scroll down my phone and try and find it and speak really slowly, and I'm not going to be
This is
able
going
to.
great.
But this is going fantastic, and nobody would know that I am padding until I find. Yes! Um, somebody who we follow online, which we've tried to get on the show, and she kind of said she would, and then she's got really, really, really super busy. But if you stalk her online as well, tell her she's got to take up the invitation to the dirty side. Is Tony Cohen Brown,
Yes.
and she does a lot in the F1 space. And anyway, she put a poll out of like basically put these two reasons up and said, which one do you believe? She had, I think on Instagram, she had said she had something like over 6,000 votes cast on it, and it came out 50-50. I
No
mean, just
way.
basically everybody was split on this. She did another one on Threads, and that only got about 600 votes. It came out 50-50. I mean, just literally no one really seemed to be unanimous on which side of the coin. And then, unfortunately, take the tinfoil hats off and reach for the boring section of the news. Another story emerged, which probably makes a lot more sense, but is way less exciting and interesting. Um, on the 31st of May, documents lodged with the regional court of Salzburg confirmed that the Uvidha family that own 49% or had 51% of the stake in Red Bull, the personal um, shares of Udiva himself, 2% stake, were transferred to some trustees association, which now meant, I believe, if we look at this, the 2% off that makes it a 49-49 between the Austrian side of Red Bull and the Asian side of Red Bull. And apparently, the Asian side is the part that Christian Horner was really, really in with. And because they had majority, even though apparently the Austrian side of the company wanted him out, they could never get the majority to get him done. So now we've had this change in power. Apparently, the Austrian side was really, really peeved that apparently Horner was pretty central in shooting down the Porsche deal when they were looking for the engine supplier. So they're really narked at that. They didn't like all the sexual stuff that was going on. They basically hate the guy, but never had enough power to get him out. Now, not a month or so after the sales, the shares have been diluted, and now Austria has got just as much power as Thailand, or I think it's Thailand,
Yeah.
part of the company. They're saying, yeah, it's just that the board has now managed to amass the right balance of power in the right place to finally pull the trigger on him.
Well,
God, that's
regardless
a
of
boring answer, but
it's
probably the
boring.
truth.
It's probably the truth. I mean, I'm not going to give any spoilers for the F1 movie, but the power of the board is apparently more than we may give credit for. And so, that's fine and good. That's probably where the answer actually lies. But it's also, at one point, there were other rumors flying around, and a story came out. It's understood that Horner's not the only person to have departed. Chief Marketing Officer Oliver Hughes and Group Director of Communications Paul Smith have also left. I don't know if that's been verified. That came out. I found it in a good source. I just don't know if that's been confirmed as of the last day or so. But a lot going on at Red Bull. Obviously, we haven't even talked about what this means and who's coming in. Laurent Mekies from
Yeah.
Racing Bulls takes over as CEO and team principal. I don't think anyone would necessarily say that's great or terrible. I mean, Laurent seems like a good enough guy. He waved to us when he was standing in front of us
He did.
at Isaac's car
At
in
you and I
Canada.
personally, I believe.
I
So,
believe so. He said, "Rob
yeah.
Bryan, thanks for coming."
I mean, he could be. He could be the complete polar opposite of, if you've had enough of the Horner show and thinking that he owns the Drive to Survive documentary, it's all about him. Just maybe putting someone in there that you get the impression doesn't care about that side of it.
An
and just
F1
wants to get
lifer.
on with being a team principal.
Yeah, an F1 lifer.
It's
He's
like,
been around the paddock forever. He worked for the FIA for a while as well. And so he's got a lot of good experience. I will say this just quickly. He was at Ferrari not long ago when the strategy was an absolute disaster. When we kept getting, all of the times with the question. And so, like, that was when this was going on, question nonstop. Laurent Mekies was there. He goes to Racing Bulls, V-Carb, whatever we want to call them, when he went there, and their strategy was pretty bad for a while too. And I know he's not the strategist.
But
they've had one or
really
two good
now.
races recently, correct? But let's just hope that those challenges aren't related to him, because I don't want to see Red Bull have any problems. And if you happen to be a team, are you calling Hannah Schmitz right now and pleading with her to leave Red Bull as strategy director and come run your strategy? Because she is good.
Yeah. True. But it would be remiss of us not to look at Horner's career. Whether you like him, whether you hate him, whether you're indifferent, there's no denying that since he's kind of been around, his success has followed him all over, although maybe not in his driving career. So he started off as a racing driver in British Formula Renault, Formula 2 and Formula 3, but at age 25, probably just had maybe the self-awareness to kind of go, yeah, I ain't really that good at this. I'm going to go and become team management instead. So he founded Arden International Motorsport, which quickly became successful in the Formula 3000 Championship. That's when Red Bull owner Dietrich Mateschitz, oh, there we go, nailed that one, got him in as team principal of Red Bull, and the rest is history, as they say. 21 seasons, 6 World Constructors Championships, 8 Drivers' Championships, 124 Grand Prix wins, 107 pole positions, 287 podiums, and his 124 victories are second only to Ron Dennis. I mean,
that's amazing.
Let's put the personality and all that crap that comes with it to one side and just say, as a resume, that is pretty awesome.
Agreed. It is pretty awesome. I will also say, though, if friend of the show Matt Bishop had been successful and lured Seb to McLaren instead of him being at Red Bull, a lot of things look a lot different. Seb and Max.
Yeah, Danny Rick is a 4-time champion instead.
Is he? I mean, Seb and Max. Those are all where all that came from. But regardless, now we have new team principals: Laurent and Alan Permain. Taking over for Laurent at RB, both a day into their roles, or this is as of Thursday. Alpine with the next shortest tenured team principal with Flavio filling that spot.
Is he team principal?
Yeah, he's TP right now. He's interim TP.
Okay.
And then Jonathan Wheatley at Sauber, who, by the way, can we say he's looking like he's putting that team on the right direction.
Yeah.
It is kind of fun to watch. And then another short tenured person, Aston Martin, Andy Cowell, 181 days. And then from there, we got Io Komatsu at Haas, longer tenured. James Vowles at Williams, he's been there a bit. Andrea Stella, 900 days, almost 3 years. Same time as when Fred Vasseur was named at Ferrari. Please, Ferrari, don't chase Horndog. Sorry, I didn't mean to call him that, but please don't. We keep Fred. I like Fred. This is just me, not the pod, not Rob. This is just Brian.
Keep Fred.
Keep Fred. keep Fred. I had a lot of conversation about them going after Horner. And then Toto Wolff, been there 4,552 days, but he's also part owner of that team, so he's never going anywhere as he does that. And this is the last time, hypothetically, we'll have to hear this.
But I'd rather fix a fast car than try and make a reliable, slow one fast.
Well, you don't have to worry about that today.
Right, okay, that's enough on the Horner news. A little scoop up from last week, which I must admit, I didn't notice, but I've seen it now in the replay and think, yeah, there's something to this. So the internet's lost their mind over the fact that Nico Hulkenberg was basically actively ignored by the McLaren drivers on the podium. Like when we saw Kimi in person get his first podium, they went nuts over him.
Nuts.
The other two drivers went absolutely nuts, despite the fact George had won. Still went nuts for Kimi. Who was second? Come on, who was second on the podium? George, Kimi.
Please.
Who else did we see up there?
Max?
Hey, another driver.
Max?
Oscar. Was it Oscar after the crash? Was Oscar up
Oscar's
there?
fourth.
Fourth. It was second then. Charles?
Max.
Did we see Charles on the podium?
Max
was there? Yeah, some other driver. They all went nuts for Kimi, right?
We saw
Look
it
how much
live
we
with
took
our own
notice.
eyes. We can't remember.
Yeah, we were drunk on adrenaline. Anyway, when you look at the Hulk getting his first podium, both McLaren drivers just almost go nowhere near him. I don't even think there's like an ounce of champagne sprayed by them, and everyone got really, really angry about it. And I took a step back. I was like, I do get it. I can see it with my own eyes. I can see that they don't really go and make a big deal of him. However, Lando maybe was justifiably a little preoccupied by the fact that he just won his first ever British race, his home race at Silverstone. He just won it in front of the Lando stand. Was spending most of his time probably in a state of disbelief, looking over the railing at all the fans and the team down below. I mean, the guy have his moment. Oscar was just silly pissed off and just didn't want to be there. Felt he'd been hosed by the penalty and just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge before, just do my media duties and get out of here. So could they have made a bigger effort to celebrate with Hulk? Yeah, they probably could. And maybe looking back on it, they wish they had. But I'm not sure either the McLaren drivers are due the hatred that was spilling online towards them. And I just think there was extenuating circumstances.
I completely agree. First of all, so many of the drivers celebrated Hulk. Pulled up next to him, Max. Others pulled up next to him on the cool-down lap. Ran over to give him a high five and a hug. Talked to him in the paddock. You saw this happening behind the scenes when we were watching interviews. It was just awesome. And when they went into the cool-down room, who was it who brought Hulk's helmet and all of his stuff in there? Lando. He was watching out for him. The race winner of his own Grand Prix went out of his way to go get Hulk's helmet and other things and pop him onto the stand there. I said it last week. That was the most emotional podium of all time. So I think each of those guys were in their own head when they were up on the podium. I make it as a nothing burger. But since Hulk is old, we have some stats. We're going to use the old-fashioned stats music to recap Hulk's win. Zap Stats recapping Hulk's victory, in reality, his podium. Okay, I said victory, didn't I? I meant podium. Jeez Louise.
You did, yeah.
Well, I promoted him to P1.
I'll edit it out later, don't worry.
Yeah, no. And so 5 times this year, Hulk's been in the points. Obviously, the podium in Silverstone being the highlight. But all of them, all points finishes for Nico Hulkenberg, have come from starting outside P10. And so this is an amazing stat for me when I look at this. 5 times. Australia, season opener, 17-7. Spain, 15-5. Dang, he's making up 10 spots a race. Now, Canada, when we were there, he went from P11 to P8, still into the points. Austria, I forgot about this. He started P20, finished P9. 11 spots. And then, of course, famously last week, his podium, not victory, podium, P19 to P3. Nico Hulkenberg, you know what? If you don't have him in fantasy, and we all know overtakes and position gains count, you need him. Forget his budget, forget his, where he stands in terms of cost and increase. That's pretty darn amazing.
Do we want to go back to earlier on in the season when one of us made predictions about Sauber and the other one shot them down massively? Or should we just let that lie for the minute?
So the next story is about Apple going all in Formula One. Obviously, the F1 movie is a blockbuster, and they spent a ton of money on it, but it is returning that, in manyfold. And so we see that happening. But the big deal is Reportedly, Apple has submitted a blockbuster bid for the U.S. media rights to stream F1 races starting in 26. Business Insider, and I saw this, Rob, I saw this as well with a little bit of extra stuff, but let's just hit the main part. Apple submitted a bid worth at least $150 million a year for the exclusive rights to F1. They suggested that the current right holder, ESPN, which is owned by Disney, of course, is unlikely to match that figure, although negotiations are still ongoing. So what do you think will happen with F1 in 26?
I don't know, but question for you. Is the audience in the US that committed to F1 now that they'll start paying for it? Because I know everyone pays for cable TV, but let's just kind of call cable TV your version of free to view, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this huge swell in numbers in the US at the moment, probably buoyed by Drive to Survive, buoyed now by the F1 movie. They're all tuning in on a Sunday on ESPN on free to air to take a look at it and see what it's all about. So great, we're getting these huge numbers now watching race days. Have they become that much in love with it that if next year Apple put that behind a paywall, you think every single one of those is going to convert and start happily paying an Apple subscription?
Very few.
I think this could kill the US audience if they're not careful about it. Now, what do I know? I'm not a TV exec, but the US market, they've spent so long and such a big strategy to try to build up the viewership. Throwing it behind a paywall like this so quickly just makes me think, oh gosh.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's a very similar story what NFL has done, and I'm sure they're watching it because the last few seasons, 1 or 2 playoff games early in the playoffs has been on Peacock. Or they started with Prime a million years ago, and then Prime bought Thursday nights. But so many people have Prime. Prime is way more, Amazon Prime, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, is way more ubiquitous than Apple TV subscriptions. I could be wrong. That said, the Peacock games have been a massive uproar because most people don't have Peacock. At least most NFL fans who want to watch these particular games don't have Peacock. And they are well pissed that they can't watch the game they already effectively have been able to watch forever, and now they need another streaming service. And yes, some people like me with a couple extra dollars in their pocket went and bought Peacock to watch the Packer game that I wanted to see, and then I turned it off. And I'm like, I just paid $4 to watch that game. It pissed me off that I shouldn't have had to do that. I am a diehard Packer fan. People who aren't diehard F1 fans aren't going to pay to watch a thing they're not fully in love with already.
Yeah,
so I agree with
I'm
you.
Worried about.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, be interesting to see because I think they're just starting to hit this kind of tidal wave of support in the US that you just got to be careful that you don't start getting too greedy and starting chasing the dollar too soon. But what do I know? Hey, now here we go. Bit of love here for Lance Stroll. Now, maybe it's because he's completely protected by the fact that his father's never going to drop him from a seat, but putting that to one side, he has spoken up ahead of the 2026 regs. He has said that he doesn't like them and other drivers just won't agree with him. Sorry, won't agree with him in public. He's spoken to them behind closed doors and they agree, but for political reasons, they're never going to back him externally. And he said, it's a bit of a shame that we're taking the path of electric energy and now we've had to shed all the downforce off the cars to support the battery power. It should be fun to see light, nimble, fast cars with lots of downforce and just simplify the whole thing a bit. And less so of an energy battery championship science project and just get back to being a Formula One racing championship. Like, damn, Lance.
I loved it. If I could find the applause button faster, I would have played it faster. I mean, he's right.
Battery championship science project.
He's right, though. I mean, like, I love F1. I don't hate it, and I'm not going to be as mad as he is at 26. But yes, smaller cars. We're not here. This is F1. We're not here for eco-sustainable. We have Formula E for that. Like, let the teams cook. And on the similar vein about the battery power and this, that, and the other, the science project, this never-ending rumor came back up this week that F1 cars could have V8 engines by 29, but this time, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, president of the FIA, said it. Wait, we just spent 2 years developing the 2026 engines, which no one apparently has nailed except Mercedes, according to all the rumors, and we'll find out, I guess, in 6 months' time. But as we look at this, they're going to then toss that away and start developing a V8? I don't understand where we're going. Are we trying to be sustainable, realign the calendar, ship stuff less, smaller footprint? sustainable fuels, use battery power, or are we now going to bring back V8s and then we'll talk about V10s and
just question on that, right?
yeah.
Why are the two things mutually exclusive? Maybe there's some science thing that I don't understand here, but if you have Formula E that is pushing forward all the battery technology, right? And we went to a world where we went purely fuel based for F1, but it was going to be to push ahead the sustainable fuel technology, so we end up with clean fuel rather than what we have now. Why can't a V8 engine run on sustainable fuel?
Well,
So
it's
I,
not
I
just
don't
a
think
fuel.
the two things. I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive, are they?
Well, I'm kind of conflating the V8 with a thirstier engine, more fuel used,
but if it's thirsty
less
on
battery.
sustainable,
I'm
then...
assuming you move away from some of the battery power and you move
Yeah,
back
but
to
imagine you went to a V10 or a V8
right.
and sustainable fuel, because they put all of the brains in F1 kind of move towards like pushing that forward. And you just imagine for a
But
minute
it's
you end
still
up in a
fuel.
world where you get a fully but you get sustainable fuel, which is not a greenhouse gas, not bad for the environment type fuel. There's biofuel, right? They go ahead with biofuel and push that forward, right?
Is it
If you've got
biofuel?
no, look, I'm just go with me a second.
Okay.
What I'm saying is Formula One normally goes for things where they're going to be at the leading edge of technology and keep pushing till eventually those things become mainstream and drop down into the road cars that you and I drive, right? And to me, even cars out on the main road now are going down two routes. You've got the combustion engine and you've got the electric cars. So let E push the electric stuff forward and go back F1 to be fully combustible and just push forward the technology on the sustainable biofuel side. And if you get that nailed, then you can have roaring engines that are burning fuel that are maybe producing output, which is, well, not the utopia of a hydrogen fuel cell where it burns pure oxygen out.
That's right, it's just water.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean, right? So
I
why
do.
not
I'm all for
sustainability.
sustainability, but I'm also for lots of tiny little explosions occurring in an engine.
Yes,
And
but
so-
fuel explodes regardless of whether it's
I
necessarily
know,
bad
but
for the
you're
environment.
if you're gonna give me battery power, if you're gonna give me all these,
no battery.
all right. Well, if they can build a fuel that is sustainable completely, then then go back
so
to
that's where I
V10s.
go yeah, exactly.
Why stop
Exactly.
at 8?
Now, obviously, maybe the technology and the science isn't there yet, so maybe that's where they're going through this interim phase. Where
Give me
kind
two
of...
banks of 5 on each side, cylinders going at each other. And I roaring Lamborghini V10. Sorry.
Right, okay, enough of that nonsense. Because what's not nonsense is you need to be tuned to your internets for Monday, because the summer blockbuster that you didn't even know you needed is about to drop its official trailer. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We will be unleashing the official trailer for Full Send, a Dirty Side movie. I mean...
Monday.
You will not believe the voice acting in this trailer. You will think, I didn't know Rob, Brian, and Paul could act like that. Wow, they got to sign you up to make this movie fully. So this is just the trailer. We are hoping that someone in Hollywood, come on, Brad Pitt, signs us up, because you just won't believe your eyes or ears. It is absolute work of art. So there you go. There's the big pitch.
Monday. All right. It's awesome. Check it out. We will put it out there into the ether on Monday. Definitely check it out. It is my man Rob's been busy at work. He has many talents. But with that, let me show you some of my lack of talent with Video Vault. We're going to get real heavy on videos right now, starting with short videos, and then we'll get to the long video known as the F1 movie. First off, F1 driver Alex Albono eats the spiciest meal of his life on Heat Eaters, which is on the First We Feast channel, which anyone who's ever watched Hot Ones is on the First We Feast channel. That's part of theirs as well. But this is their show, Heat Eaters. It's 13 minutes. I loved this. I love Alex. We've liked him a long time. When we did our driver draft and we created our perfect team, we had Alex on there.
Yeah, we did.
His attitude, even when I was getting a little feisty on the radio, signed me up for it. This was 13 minutes of Alex Albon gold. So if you're looking for like...
It was Carlos Sainz not in this one with him?
No, this is just Alex.
That's a missed opportunity. Haven't they got their chili logo for the two of them?
They
this
do.
Is an eat spicy food thing. I mean, come on, guys.
Well, sometimes they just request a particular driver, and Alex showed up. But anyway, the chef was cooking him spicier and spicier meals. The meals looked great. The conversation was fantastic. Loved it. The next one is a Rob.
Oh yeah, I was just sitting there eating my breakfast this morning and scrolling through YouTube, and this one popped up. And I'm not normal. You know me. I am not normally one for the big, long time investment.
No.
Like Brian puts one up there that's like 8 minutes or north of 8 minutes. I'm like, oh, come on, Brian. I haven't got 8 minutes to be sitting around. But this one weighs in at 25 minutes.
Aye.
And I love it because there is just no, it doesn't feel like a commercial that they're trying to sell me anything. It is Brad Pitt drives an F1 car for the first time, full day with McLaren, him, Cota, with Lando teaching him how to drive the track. So without kind of too many spoilers in here, Lando takes him on a lap around the track in a McLaren, not the F1 car, one of the road cars. I didn't clock which one it was, but it's those two in a car. He's explaining all the braking points, and Brad is just totally there for it. He is taking notes. He wants to know, what meter do I brake at? Do I take this? Do I take this corner flat out? And Lando, I think at one point goes, "Well, I would." Which is awesome. And then he gets his chance in the 2023 McLaren car to just drive it. If you want to know what someone's face looks like when all their Christmases have come at once, you just watch Brad Pitt getting out of that car. It was absolutely brilliant. He came off like an absolute legend. So did the team. Just go watch it. It's 25 minutes and it flies by.
Or, alternatively, if you want to spend half the time but get twice as many people driving, you could go to the Sky Sports F1 channel. Brad Pitt and Martin Brundle drive Lando Norris's McLaren F1 car. So it's shorter, and you get twice as many people, and you get a lot of the same reactions. However, Rob's right. His one on the McLaren channel is fantastic. If you really want to get invested and watch someone take notes, someone who had driven an F2 car and was kind of loosely ready for this, and how challenging it was, Rob's is good too. But if you're short on time and want twice as many people, you can get Martin with you. Sky Sports F1 channel. And then the last couple videos, F1 drivers answer the most Googled F1 questions on Wired. 8 minutes. This had 6 drivers from RB, Williams, and Haas. I enjoyed this. And I gotta say, the rookies are awesome. There were 2 here, obviously. We have the time with Ollie Behrman and Isaac. I guess you could call Liam a rookie still, too. I guess so 3, even though I didn't really entering the season regardless. Anyway, it was fun. And just hearing them answer most Googled questions about F1. And they all took turns. And Esteban was there like the wise old guy. Esty Bestie was spitting facts. So check it out. It was a lot of fun. And then finally, a closer look at Oscar Piastri's Silverstone penalty. Jolyon Palmer's F1 TV Analysis F1 channel, 10 minutes. Count Jolyon and Team Oscar and thought the penalty was not at all deserved. Not at all. He defended it the whole way through. I'm like, bro, what? Like, you can clearly see here that Max purposely drove around the side, and no, it was in the rain. You wanted to block up.
I saw this as well, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I thought better of Jolyon, because irrespective of whether Max sped up or not, like, you could airbrush Max out of that picture. It doesn't matter. The amount of braking that Oscar did and the speed that he dropped in like 3 meters, it was just deemed reckless when he is the safety car. And we covered this last week, so we won't fully go over this again. But most people out there, as it will calm down a bit, most people looked at it and went, yep, definitely different to George's. George's, the safety car wasn't ending. They were finishing the race under safety car. Not the same thing. Plus, the amount of braking that George did, nowhere near Oscar's.
Right.
Oscar was the safety car. The lights had gone off. He is now subject to harsher rules. But I think most people out there, me included, sort of went, 5 would have probably been the
big penalty.
Number.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Big penalty. But regardless, it felt like this was like sponsored by McLaren. Yeah. So anyway, with that, we're closing the vault on short videos, and let's move to the big one. Now, as Rob said earlier, if you have not seen the F1 movie, now is a good time to pause the podcast. When you've watched the movie, come back and rejoin us at this point, because spoilers are about to happen. And so we've warned you. You've been warned. We're going to give you one more second to find the pause button before we start. So you can't say anything that we didn't warn you. And at this point, it's too late. Welcome to the F1 movie review. Now, Rob, I've seen this twice, and you've seen it once. I loved it. Let's just start off with a broad brushstroke macro view. I loved it. I was able to turn off my F1 brain, my knowledge and love of the sport, and I went into a Hollywood movie about the thing I really enjoy, and I loved it.
Agree, 100%. I thought it was fantastic. I was, same as you, when I arrived at the cinema and bought my beer to go in and watch it, I gave them some money for the beer. I also detached the F1 nerd part of my brain and left that with them at the counter as well, so that part couldn't be chirping in all the way through the film going, oh, but what about this? Or that would never happen. And because I was able to do that, just sat back and took it for what it is. It's I don't know if you I don't know if you do subscribe to Apple TV. They got a show on there at the moment called The Studio with Seth Rogen, and it's all set in a studio that makes films, is what he says. He says we make films here, and the guy comes and he says, no, we don't make films, we make movies, because movies are all about action and drama and Hollywood and big explosions.
Yeah.
Films are arty and detailed. No one likes films. We make movies. That's what this is.
Yes.
This is not an F1 film. In fact, they call it the F1 movie because it's a summer blockbuster that is Top Gun in race cars.
It is not a documentary in any way, shape, or form. There's one piece of reality, which I'll talk about at the end in a sidebar, but otherwise, the tracks are real, the other teams are real, the sport is real. This is a made-up movie, and I loved it. I may see it a third time in the movie theater.
I'm going to see it a second time this week with my son. He was on vacation down in Mexico when I went to watch it the first time. He's like, "Oh, you've already seen it." I was like,
"You got to take him. He's
gonna come and watch it a second time."
He's gonna love it.
So yeah, I mean, is it the most convoluted story in the world that you're going to need to take notes for? No. Is it predictable in lots of places? Yes. I will say that the ending, we've warned people about spoilers, so
we're fine at this point.
Right? We're fine at this point. I actually didn't expect Brad Pitt to win the race.
I didn't either.
I honestly thought that was the big setup, that he was putting himself, he'd wanted to win all of his life, he'd walked away from the sport, he'd come back, here's his big moment when he could win it, but he's grown and he's going to slingshot his buddy to victory. And that all looks set up that was going to happen. I didn't see the ending coming that Brad actually.
Yeah, I didn't see the Damson. What was his name in the movie? Sonny Hayes' teammate. What was his name in the movie? I can see it.
No, you're gonna
JP.
No,
JP. They called
JP.
him. I can't. JP. John Pierce. Something like that.
Yes.
Something like that. I'm close. I didn't see JP and Lewis coming together. And then Sonny
Lewis
Hayes
as a producer would
through.
kind of go, yeah, I'll get taken out right at the end.
Yeah. I didn't see that, but well, we'll talk a little bit more about the story as we kind of go through some bullets on why this may not always resonate with some F1 fans, or things too especially detached from your brain. But again, was the story predictable? 1,000,000%. Did it give you exactly what predictable stories do? Some good feels, leave you on a high. The guy, the protagonist wins, runs off to the sunset with the girl, and in this case, just starts driving other stuff. Yeah, great, good for Sonny. Did it leave any things to interpretation? Not really. And that's okay. That's okay. Just, it's not a deep movie. It's not a film, as Rob says. It's not a documentary, but I'm so happy they made it.
And I do want to hit, before we get into the stuff you need to ignore, which we'll put our normal dirty side humorous spin on this, but the stuff that we know have maybe caused upset to some people that went to see it. There was one big thing hanging over it, and I didn't know how big a part it was going to play, and it was the whole Brad Pitt sleeping with the engineer. And it was getting a lot of hatred online of, reducing a woman's role down to needing to sleep with the driver. And I was like, okay, are they going to have completely hosed this up? So I went in, took my wife, we watched the film, we came out, and I said to her, enjoy? And like, to my massive surprise, she loved it. I said, what did you think about the bit with him hooking up with her? And then I told her about kind of the backlash it had online. And she's pretty kind of, feminist power type thing. And she was like, it was blink and you miss it. Like, literally, if I turned my head to take a sip of my drink and look back up at the screen, they didn't make a big thing of it. She wasn't in a position of sleeping with him to sleep to the top, and it just shows that a woman can only get to power. She was already in power. In fact, she had the power over him because she was his engineer. So, yeah, did they maybe... I know you didn't like the bit, and neither did I, where she's kind of a bit gooey-eyed with him later on. But literally, out of a 2.5-hour movie, it lasts for about 3 minutes.
Yeah, my wife is, it sounds as though, also a huge feminist, and even bigger maybe than yours, and she didn't even mention that part. I didn't like the way, the doughy eye thing afterwards on the balcony. That's not in her character. It was not in the character that she played. She played a badass the whole movie, and then all of a sudden, not. And I was like, what? And otherwise, I thought Carrie Condon, I think is her name. I'm terrible with actors' names, but she was brilliant.
Oh, she was amazing.
I just felt like that was out of character for that character at that moment. But otherwise, I thought she was great. Javier Bardem was great. I really enjoyed Damson Idris. I'd not seen him before. I don't know if he's been in the movies I would have seen, but he was great. And Brad Pitt was Brad Pitt. I'll say this. My friend Mark in Detroit sent me a note after he saw it, and he said that somewhere Brad Pitt had gone online or in an interview said, I focused on my acting in the car and a lot less on my acting outside the car. And my friend Mark said, boy, did that show. He loved the movie, but he thought Brad did kind of mailed it in. He just basically was a caricature of Brad Pitt outside of the car being Brad Pitt. And I don't know if I fully agree, Mark, but I appreciate your perspective. But I do kind of see what he said. Brad Pitt is just Brad Pitt now. He can't be anyone else. He can't like play a character. He's just Brad Pitt, and he was Brad Pitt outside the car. But he was great in the car. I don't know how they did that.
I can't agree with that because I think he was fully Sonny Hayes, and I think Sonny Hayes to me is different to Brad Pitt.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
I thought he was really good in it. Like I say, Damson Idris was. I thought he was brilliant in it. I actually really liked his character arc. Like, you knew what was going to happen. He was the hot-headed youngster that was never going to see the benefit in what Brad Pitt's character, what Sonny Hayes was going to try to teach him. But the way kind of... Okay, we all knew the story arc was going to go that way, that he would come around to liking him and respect his opinion. But sometimes the acting that goes along that kind of change in personality just jars you because you're like, hang on a minute, 5 minutes ago you hated the guy and now you don't. But they actually blended that arc of him coming round to it, I thought, really, really well.
Agreed. When he told his manager, I don't need you this weekend, I'm just focused on the driving, in his last race possibly for a while. That was the subtle... I'm not here for the press this time. I'm not here. I'm here to race. I'm here to do what I can do for the team, for myself, for my career, myself. And I know that's a small thing, and the way it was done wasn't that big a deal. I thought that was a great way of closing what you described.
Yeah, I agree. It was a small detail, but done really, really well. They didn't kind of put this big flashing neon light up for all the stupid people in the audience to go, this is the bit where he likes Brad. They just subtly kind of...
That was, if I'm being honest, though, like we're about to hit some critiques here, that was one of the few things that was subtle in this movie. Everything else was very... very obvious. It was like...
Yeah, so let's have a bit of fun with the things that if I hadn't cashed in my F1 nerd brain at the desk and taken it into the theatre with me, which bits would I have been gnashing my teeth and going, why? Why did you do this, Brad? Lewis, how did you let this happen? No particular order for these, but me and you both clocked this one straight away. Race weekends only contain races. Practice, we all know practice wouldn't be exciting enough to get into Hollywood.
Right. But
just ask pit lane pool. But quali?
They didn't even mention qualifying. Either. They never even said we qualified. I don't think the word qualifying, qualification ever came up. So much so that my wife, who I think's watched one race in her entire life on TV, leaned over to me and said, wait, did I miss quali? I go, no, they did.
It's like one of at the beginning they're always starting in the back, and then randomly out of nowhere they're suddenly like halfway up the grid. It's like, so do we just arrive at the order that we arrive in the circuit in? If we get up earlier in the morning, do we get on pole? I mean, it was just, that was funny. It was
the next thing that got me was that you can upgrade a car completely in effectively 1 week's time. Brad argues with Sonny, argues with the technical director of the team, and says, we need to make the car better in dirty air so we can follow closer. We got to build it for combat, for chaos. Plan C, which was either combat or chaos throughout the entire movie. Okay. And she goes, well, I'm not going to do that until you show me that you're in the team for good and that it'll be better. And she comes up with the side of the floor, just the edge of the floor, a wavy line over what appears to be about 8 inches of floor.
I will, just before you pull this part too much.
Yeah.
A character's Kate, right? When Kate starts playing with the CFD stuff and the wind tunnel modeling, I did like that little nod to the science behind the sport.
Oh, yes,
agreed. Turbines spun up and looking at the air going over the car. But then the fact that it's like they kind of distilled it all down into, and Kate's just going to press like Control Alt or copy paste and done, and then boom, we've now got car ready for combat. Build it, deploy it, attach it to the car. All takes 5 minutes.
And with no quali, they were always starting the magical race at 19th and 20th. But because of this wavy 8 inches of floor, and that was it. They just like literally showed it, swap out this piece, put this piece on. It wasn't like a whole new floor. They're like, oh yeah, now we're like 8th, 7th. We're starting 6th. What? Okay.
And they'd obviously decided to base, the split isn't too far out of reality, but it can't happen to a team every single race. I think you gave Carlos in Austria as an example of this, where every race they started once they got the magic floor in, the beginning, as soon as the lights went out, they instantly jumped forward like 8 places. It was just on board. It was just showing like it was like sped up mode where they're just zigging and zagging in and out of cars.
Well, at least I think this was Lewis probably came through with the idea that you can't do this every time. So one of them, what they had was Sonny showed up with hot tires, and everyone waited a longer amount of time than ever before. And so he was hot tires and brakes and took off. That was Carlos in Austria, just sitting on the grid for a while. Like, is he having problems? Or are you just going to rock up while everyone's been sitting for 30 minutes and you just show up and like, hit go? But yeah, you're right. There's no way you ran through a mushroom first and Mario Karted it past 8 people every time.
Love this one, which is like Sonny Hayes' tactics at the beginning are essentially to turn F1 into Destruction Derby, where he just decides that the best way to help his teammate is just drive into everybody else or smash into advertising hoardings and bring out safety cars all over. And they did almost tip their hat at this because, and I can't remember the exact reference, but they do talk about K-Mag. When they start talking about all these dangerous tactics, there was some little sort of, I think, was it one of the F1 drivers or was it commentary team? Someone mentioned K-Mag at this point, and that was like a little hidden Easter egg for all us F1 nerds to go, yes, that's K-Mag.
I think there were 2. Wasn't there one where he was actually battling K-Mag, and he knew that he had to be careful because like he gets his elbows out. But then he did something else, something like you're driving like K-Mag or something. It was a great Easter egg. You're right. I didn't think of it that way, but you're totally right. I loved it.
But no black and white flags, no penalties for Sonny in any of this. Really, it's just just keep driving into things. It's all good.
I mean, it's almost like K-Mag going out and going super slowly so that Hulkenberg can build up a pit stop window in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, the one that really got me, but I was so relaxed at this point, I was enjoying it. But had I been on the lookout for things, when he crashes into the barrier to cause the red flag, when he goes into the barrier backwards and his rear wings hanging off, you can apparently in a modern F1 car cause so much damage to a barrier that you have to red flag the whole session because the barrier needs repair. However, at the same time, leave your car in a completely drivable state so that you can get back to the pit lane. It's like they're pretty much indestructible tanks, these F1 cars. They can smash a barrier to pieces, but they're drivable.
Well, they build the cars for combat, remember? Yep. The New York Times called the story thin, and as I've kind of said, if I were critiquing it, I would agree. But if you turn your brain off, you can go in. I will say this. Towards the end, when Brad, after his Sonny, after his last shunt, 3 days later on his own dime, shows up to Abu Dhabi. I'm ready to race. I'm out. I can do it. What was it, Vegas he was coming from the hospital? And team principal Javier Bardem is like, no, you can't. And they get into this whole discussion, and he goes out on the track, and he's seeing double. He's having trouble seeing as he's driving an F1 car. And they teed it up perfectly. His spine had been fused. He's at risk of, if he ever had another incident, of potential paralysis or death. I can't have you die on the track in my car. And you see his vision going, and you're wondering, he's sweating. What's going to happen to him? And I'm a big fan of the TV show Sopranos on HBO. And so The Sopranos, when that ended, another set of spoilers. So if you're in the middle of Sopranos, stop this one right now. But when Sopranos ended, they just cut to black with a potential gunman in the bathroom right behind Tony. And they just cut to black and play Journey. And then it goes straight black. And I thought my cable died. So did the whole rest of the world. We're all like, what happened? And there's still a debate, what happened to Tony Soprano? There was none of that here, not even remotely a little bit. No one decided to do any of that because we immediately see Brad at the Baja race looking for a ride at the end. And we're like, oh, he's fine.
Well, yeah, they completely abandoned that storyline.
Yeah.
They set it all up. They did the blurred vision, and then in the final race, it didn't actually
He ended up being okay towards the end of the race, and he was
and won the race.
Yeah.
It's like, where did the whole vision and injury thing go? Did someone forget? Did one of the writers forget that they set that piece up?
And then they do the champagne, and then he packs his bag and walks away. I'm like, how's he getting home? Because he flew commercial. There's no flights at this time of night. Anyway.
And then one of the biggest ones, or the last couple that kind of were the big ones, I guess, were cars apparently in Movieland can drive so fast in the rain on slicks that not only can you not believe how fast they're going around corners on slicks, but then when they do lose it, they're going so fast that they'll get airborne and completely vault over very high catch fences. That was the bit out of all of the onboard action and all those kind of things. That crash for JP just didn't look right. It just looked, well, it obviously was CGI, but it just didn't sit right, that little sequence. But
I agree. Well, what was that?
I was enjoying it, so I could get past that. It's fine.
That was Parabolica, where I think it was, if I'm doing my track math right, because they wanted him to do it on the straight to the start finish line. Yep. So he tries to pass before Parabolica, and then just like you say, goes completely airborne. I'm like, oh, fascinating. Did he hit a Mario Kart banana?
Don't know. You'd be lucky to do that in the dry going that fast, but well, unlucky depending on how you look at it. But
right.
He was like full on monsoon, and he's just going full guns on slicks. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then the last little kind of F1 doesn't really work like that moment. Really, we probably should have started with this because it was actually the tee up right at the beginning as to why he needed to get Sonny Hayes in. Was the team owner is like, we haven't won a single race, and the investors, the board are getting antsy. And if we don't win a race, then they're going to sell the team because you have to win a race in Formula One. I'm like, really? Probably about 8. Right now there's probably about like 5 or 6 teams on the grid that got twitchy at that point in the audience, going, "Really? Is that how it works?"
Do you think Gene Haas is watching, going, "Crap, am I in trouble here?"
I mean, I guess they maybe they needed that to hit the to do the setup to hit the audience that maybe weren't F1 savvy, because maybe if you tried to explain that points would be enough, people would be sat there going,
"What are points?
What's that? What
yeah.
points?" So I get why they did the win thing, but it was just funny to me. It was like, yeah, we must win a race, otherwise they're just going to just disintegrate the team.
I did have to explain to my wife who Gunter Steiner was, because he had 3 separate leaning back out of the pit box. Looking back down the pit lane, and I had to explain who Gunter was. And so that was fun. Real quick, the inspiration for the crash, I found this and I did not know this. So they referenced Sonny Hayes' crash that obviously ended the beginning of his F1 career, the beginning of his race career. It was a real crash. There was a driver. I didn't know that until like a day ago. There was a driver named Martin Donnelly who cannot remember the crash that almost killed him. And not only almost killed him once, it almost killed him 3 times. It was qualifying for the Spanish Grand Prix, just as it is in the race, in the movie, in 1990. And he was driving the Lotus. And the car split in half when he crashed into the barriers at 160 miles an hour. To a T at this point. The scenes that came next were harrowing. Donnelly's body was still strapped to a seat. He was laying in the middle of the track, surrounded by pieces and shards of his car that had been split in 2 by that impact. Sid Watkins, F1's key medical and safety delegate, arrived at the scene. Donnelly's face was turning blue from swallowing his tongue. After stabilizing his condition, he was transferred to Seville and then eventually to where Watkins was from, his hospital in London. He had sustained, Donnelly, head and lung injuries. Both of his legs were broken to the point where the doctor, Watkins, who found him on track, had to intervene to stop surgeons from amputating his left leg. He was in an induced coma. His organs started to fail. His heart stopped twice. His condition was so bad he was given last rites by a priest, yet he came through, and that accident was the inspiration for Sonny's accident in the movie. I didn't know any of that, and that's insane and crazy, and I'm happy that Martin Donnelly is with us today.
Yeah, I know one of the things that you hadn't realized was the amount of kind of some of the camera trickery that they did in terms of, we know that they were driving F2 cars that had been modified, but a lot of the on-track action when viewed from outside, some of those overtakes, it was like, well, that's not really Brad Pitt driving an F2 car going around the outside of whoever it was, say Max or whatever.
Carlos.
They actually used real life race footage and then CGI'd the Apex livery over real cars. So I think one of the overtakes was like, let's just say it was Charles on Max. They basically swapped Charles's car out and turned it into an Apex GP car. That's why some of the overtakes just looked so on point, because they really were. It was real. So I thought the cinematography in it was just absolutely fantastic. Like, even if you want to then get into that debate, we've poked fun at some of the stuff that we know wasn't factual, and we don't care because we're here for the entertainment. But it's in the car. They were chef's kiss. Brilliant.
Yeah. And that's what Joseph Kosinski, the director who did Top Gun Maverick, he brought that feel with Tom Cruise into that kind of camera in the cockpit, literally still another cockpit, but cameras in tight, made you feel like you were in the plane. Here made you feel like you were in the car. I did my last note here before I have a question for you that I'm highlighting in the notes, which I'll get to in a second here. Before I get to that, I did get in a little trouble. I told my wife this was just like Top Gun Maverick, where there's an arc of characters and story that happens outside the plane, and that the plane is maybe not ancillary, but just it's not all of the movie. And I said that's the same. And we walk out, and there was a lot of swearing. She loved the movie, but she goes, "You effing lied. That's like 90% at the track in the car and 10% outside at best." She goes, "I loved it, but you lied to get me here, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, I did, but I knew you'd like it." So, Rob, any last thoughts before I ask you one question about this movie?
No, I was just trying to. I don't know. Maybe as an F1 fan, maybe I'd argue there probably wasn't enough. But yeah, I don't know. In my head, it felt balanced. But there you
I
go.
loved it.
It's
I
each
loved
to their own.
So we both loved it, but I have one question,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious, honestly. Do you think that Rush may have been a better F1 movie than F1
No.
the movie?
No. Rush is a better F1 film, and F1 the movie is a better movie because they're both trying to be different things.
Right.
So
Back to your point. That's
F1
what I should have phrased it that way. That was my question.
F1 movie is trying to just be a summer blockbuster with a really predictable storyline and lots of car action, and like your wife mentioned, just show me cars going fast all the time.
Yeah.
Rush is trying to depict a factual relationship between two drivers and is moving more not to the mockumentary or whatever you want to call it, but it had to try to stay a bit more true to things, even if it took artistic licenses, because it knew the subject matter it was going after was real. This is Sonny Hayes, who isn't. Right. So I don't know. I don't think you can compare. I don't think it's apples to apples.
I agree that it's not. It's not. But if I were looking for my favorite F1, sort of styled movie, they're different. And I don't think I can put one over the other. I loved Rush because of, to your point on film, it was a whole experience, and it was based on real life and real characters, and they had to do justice to that, yet still stylize it so that it was a movie-worthy 2-hour experience. F1, the movie, is a summer blockbuster, and it's based on nothing real except a sport.
So what I'd say to that is, if you gave me the choice of maybe sitting down and watching both of them in my front room at home on my TV, I'd pick Rush. If you told me they're both on in 2 theaters in an IMAX and you can pick which one you want to watch, I'm going into F1 the movie because this is a movie you have to see at the cinema because it has to be big, huge, loud, in your face. I'm not sure it will transcribe as well to sit and watching it.
Good question. I don't know if it will either. That's a great question. But
it'd be interesting.
Regardless, we both loved it. And to put a capper on it, if you haven't seen it and you've listened to this, well, you totally ignored the spoiler part. Go see it. And if you've watched it recently and came back to listen, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Rob, anything else to highlight this week?
No, we've just got to try and scramble and see what we're doing next week. Maybe we can convince someone to come on and have a guest. I don't know what your work travel is like this week.
Home this week for the first time in 5 or 6 weeks.
Maybe we'll try and get somebody on. If any of you listening out there want to come on and take on 100 seconds of DRS and you've never done it, then just hit us up. We'd love to have somebody on. We haven't had a kind of a listener on for a while, so could be a good week for it.
Yes.
And then, of course, we'll also preview Spa.
Yes, which will get me a little bit hot and bothered because of the whole rotation thing. But we won't talk about that today. Everybody, thank you so much for listening this week. We hope you had fun. We know we did. We look forward to talking to you in 1 week's time. Be well, be safe, everybody.